Hello, welcome to the New Stack Makers, a podcast where we talk about at-scale application development, deployment, and management. It's Alex Williams, the New Stack, here at Cloud Foundry Summit, Day 2, with the team from, I'm just going to get this exactly right, EngineerBetter, Dan Young and Peter Jones. How are you guys?
Very good, thanks.
Yep.
Great.
Thanks for having us.
So you've introduced airplane.ci. I'm intrigued by the name first, and tell us what it is. You know, it's a managed service for Concourse CI, correct?
That's right. It's
And it can help people understand what Concourse CI is, who may not be familiar with it.
so Concourse CI has been around for a couple of years now.
Yep.
Maybe two to 3 years. It's a project that began at Pivotal, and it puts pipelines, or the concept of a pipeline, as like the first-class citizen in the CI tool. And what this means is that you get everything that matters to you in one place, in a clear UI, all of the inputs, all the ways you're going to process those inputs, like your view of the world, and then you can output it, and you can work on that in a very, very visual and intuitive way. And the other thing that Concourse does, in contrast to other CI services, it expresses everything as code, and it's very declarative. So it has a lot in common with the rest of the Cloud Foundry ecosystem.
Okay. So how's it? You know, we cover a lot of different CI/CD environments, including Worker. You familiar with Worker? They were bought by Oracle.
I've heard of them, yeah.
Automated pipelines again, you know, and trying to automate that process for, you know, so like the testing is done, and so you can actually, you know, go through all that. Take us through the process, that pipeline process that you've developed through Concourse CI.
So we, the process of building a pipeline, you mean? Or
Yeah, like what are the different, you know, steps, so to speak?
So, I mean, most of our day-to-day work with a lot of Cloud Foundry customers, because we're a Cloud Foundry consultancy,
Right.
we work around that ecosystem, has been helping build pipelines to automate and deliver the platform itself. But, you know, we do the same thing with apps, but we've taken that concept of continuous deployment and then applied it to the platform as well. So that's been where we've had a lot of success in taking open source Cloud Foundry and Pivotal Cloud Foundry, and then teaching people to continually upgrade it, like pick up these updates as they come out, deploy them immediately, test everything immediately, continuously, and that's the end goal. But the process of building that, Pete, I mean, how would you describe it? It's kind of, it's very much it's beginning with the manual steps and then iterating on that to build a set of jobs.
Just starting with the simplest possible thing and then just building up the steps. And I think Concourse is particularly suited to a complex deployment like Cloud Foundry because it has very good support for pipelines and management of artifacts that need to fan in and fan out of jobs as they flow down the pipeline.
We hear this concept of pipelines coming up more and more. You know, what are the problems that developers are having right now without pipelines, without this automated way of doing continuous delivery? You know, what is that problem you're solving for them that they're having right now? So
the purpose of the pipeline or continuous deployment is to make it economic to work in small batch sizes. So if you, in the absence of that, what happens is you work in big batch sizes, and that means you start increasing the amount of risk you're taking on. And
what's the risk?
So the risk is not being able to isolate cause and effect. So if you can make the tiniest one-line change and then you instantly see whether that's going to work or not, you can fix it. Like it's easy, it's cheap.
But if you can't see it
immediately, if you batch up all of your changes and then go, oh, we'll do this in 2 weeks because, well, we don't have a pipeline for our apps or our platform, so we'll just have to make all these changes at once. It will go wrong, and you won't know why. So, and then what happens is you don't make the deadline, so then you batch up the change even more, and then you're batching up the risk even more, and it gets worse and where it compounds. You have to have a machine that makes it cheap to make small changes. It's safe, it's easy, simple.
In an iterative way, right? So, what is the technical? You know, what is the underlying technical architecture for what you're doing? What is special about it?
What, of Concourse itself?
Yeah, well, I mean, so you use Concourse, and that's the, so what is that sauce that you guys are adding to it that makes it, that makes it distinct?
How do you answer that?
Well, we're hosting it. It's the first and only hosted concourse, but we're managing it. We'll be providing continuous updates for it. So as Cloud Foundry consultants, what we've done quite often in the past is to go into client engagements, and the first thing we'll do is set up Concourse, because Concourse is the best way to automate Cloud Foundry. We've done that quite a few times now, and we always thought, why isn't there a service to do this?
So this is a hosted service of that, right?
Yes, exactly, yeah.
So mostly it's been installed on-prem for companies then?
Yeah, well, or in the cloud.
Or in the cloud, right.
It can be used on any infrastructure because it's based on BOSH. So you get all the benefits of BOSH and the multi-cloud CPI and CPI adapters. But Pete's absolutely right. What we've evolved to now with Airplane CI is the end goal for us, which was to eliminate all the boring stuff that we have to keep doing over and over again. Every time we work with a new customer, we're like spending a few days setting up Concourse. So we replaced that with a tool called Concourse Up that gave us a one command line way of just getting it all set up in one go. But now we've reduced that to 0 commands by just offering it as a hosted service. And we're really interested to see now if we can encourage more people outside the Pivotal ecosystem to become interested in Concourse, because the barrier to entry has suddenly dropped to nothing. Yeah. So the conditions should be good for that, because everybody likes Concourse when they see it. And also, everyone who's using Jenkins is intensely frustrated. So we're really hoping that we can really encourage a new way of thinking in CI.
What is that intense frustration that you are starting to recognize?
Well, it's been around for a long time.
Well, one of the great features of Concourse that Jenkins lacks is isolated builds. So Concourse and a few other CIs run their build jobs in containers. And what that means is it's 100% repeatable. You have, for any given input, you get the same output. Whereas if you just run the jobs on a VM, like Jenkins does, you can leave state around, you can change things, and then next time you run the job or another job runs, suddenly the world might be different and it might fail, and that's a very hard thing to debug.
Okay.
There's a pattern that has occurred at our CTO, Dan Jones, calls, you don't just have one Jenkins, you have Genkai. They end up multiplying. And what happens is the Jenkins becomes this horrible snowflake that nobody can ever fix or replace. So they're like, okay, we'll have another Jenkins. It's fine. We'll get it right this time. And then it becomes another snowflake and another one, and then they're multiplying, and you have to have a team to look after it, and it's so difficult to maintain that you have a ticketing system in front of it, and everyone hates it. It's just plugins and they're going wrong, and yeah. So
the Jenkinses, they're here.
Life is too short for this. So let's have a better way of doing things.
Well, I've heard that frustration before about Jenkins, and like it's. Everything has to be plugged in, right?
Everything's plugged in.
Yeah, everything's a plug-in. So you have teams managing the plugins that are being plugged in.
Yes.
And it just goes on and on.
Yeah. And if it dies, it's very hard to bring back as well.
Yeah. So what is the architecture underneath Concourse that makes it unique? What is it about the Concourse architecture that distinguishes it? What is the technical architecture?
Well, P's been doing a lot of the engineering on this, so I'll let him explain.
So one of the main things is that all the builds run inside containers. But another great thing about Concourse is that it just has a very simple basic primitives that you use for building complicated pipelines. And I think they've really found some nice primitives that give you a lot of flexibility in creating, you can create very complex pipelines if your business process is complex, or simple ones with using some very, very simple basic primitives, which are resources.
I don't think the other common hosted CI services are generally designed to cope with that sort of complexity. I think if you've got one repo and you're building one app and it's very simple deployment, it's great. But Concourse can cope with incredible levels of complexity. And we have with some of our customer environments, we're not only having one pipeline, but we have multiple for multiple environments. And then what we do is we snapshot the state of that pipeline and all the things it took to make that pipeline go green. We pass it into the next pipeline. So you can have dev, stage, production, and you can you can promote change across these different pipelines.
So is this have applications beyond Cloud Foundry then?
Oh,
There's
absolutely.
the hosted
It can be
CI.
used for anything. We use it.
Yeah, yeah. So you're consulting in the Cloud Foundry space, and I just was assuming that this is a Cloud Foundry ecosystem technology. But what are the use cases for outside of Cloud Foundry?
Well, absolutely anything. And I think that's what's so exciting to us is that it's got instant appeal and it has far-reaching implications beyond the Cloud Foundry ecosystem. But it leverages BOSH. You get all the benefits of that. But CI is also in the continuous deployment is the next hurdle that most platform adopters suddenly encounter.
Yeah.
Because okay, I've got a way of getting my code into production and I can get feedback on that, but unless I can continuously deliver it, what's the point? Unless I've got all the apps doing, CF Push is actually a great, it embodies the simplicity and the value of Cloud Foundry, but in the real world, people are using CI to get their apps onto Cloud Foundry.
Right. There's a story I was writing about Oracle's new cloud native app technologies. Again, this is where I was mentioning Worker, and they talk. And one thing they're trying to do is build infrastructure from a continuous delivery perspective. Right? Because continuous integration people do, but continuous delivery is a whole nother matter, and enterprises are having a lot of trouble with that. Basically, because I think from my own conversations with people, there's a lot of talk about glue, right? There's always been this talk about glue, but applying that glue and figuring out what the glue is that you're going to kind of create this adhesive between these different technologies is a whole nother matter. So I'm curious on that approach. Is that a kind of the approach you're thinking about? Is like continuous delivery as kind of a foundation for thinking through how really companies should be using cloud services?
I don't know if it is glue. I think obviously it is at a technical level. You could see it as glue, but I just always come back to the idea of CI or continuous deployment or continuous delivery. Any of those terms, they're all about working in smaller batch sizes and creating that feedback loop. And
yes,
that is the purpose of it. The reason you do it is so that you can learn more quickly. That's it.
Cause and effect. Right.
Cloud Foundry.
Right.
Get my code, get it somewhere that runs, so I can have feedback on that. And then CI or CD and Concourse is letting you do that continuously, and then applying tests to it continuously. Not just can I deploy it, but does it actually do the things I said it was going to do? And I can do that. I can do that testing cheaply, so that I can make small iterations.
And you can do it cheaply because it's container based.
You can do it cheaply because, in terms of time, and
right.
risk. Yeah, the cost of failure is very low.
Is low
because you've arranged your testing in the pipeline to do the cheap tests first, unit testing, and then the system testing comes at the end. System testing is expensive computationally because it takes a long time to do.
So the service is now in limited beta?
It's a limited beta, yeah. So we are collecting, we've got you can sign up on airplane.ci. We are going to be allowing people off that beta waitlist and giving them deployment permissions. And then they'll have access to, in one click, deployed a new single-tenant Concourse. It'll be fully managed for them. It'll upgrade for them. They'll be, after a few minutes, they see the progress bar finish. They get handed back their connection details, and they can get going.
So why do you call it airplane? Because airplanes fly through the clouds?
Well, we did stick with the kind of the naming scheme that was common in Concourse. And
is that so there is a naming mechanism around Concourse?
So Concourse is composed of modules, and they're all named with the airport.
I think I
theme.
saw something like baggage.
Exactly.
Baggage claim.
Baggage claim. Yeah.
There's a few others.
That is so clever. All kinds of marketing opportunities out of that.
Well, you need a good metaphor,
yeah, it's a great metaphor.
We've had containers and Docker, and they rock that metaphor.
Right.
So there's still a lot of mileage left in the airline industry.
Yeah. So tell us about those different aspects of the service. What are the different aspects of the service that that consists of Concourse, using those metaphors that we're talking about? What are some of the different aspects of it that set it apart? I mean, we've talked a little bit about it, but in terms of the nomenclature that's used in terms of the platform itself, such as, baggage, and
some of the parts of it.
Yeah.
Well, you could run through the main parts and then.
Yeah, so there's the ATC, which is kind of the web interface. So Concourse is a very minimal web interface, and one reason for that is so that you have to change everything through code. So you can check in your pipelines, that means they're version controlled, and it's easy to get them back if they die. So the ATC is the minimal web interface for Concourse.
Because all the code's really doing.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's baggage claim, I think, is the workers. So this is they run your jobs using Garden, which is like a container runtime, same one that Cloud Foundry uses.
But it doesn't necessarily have to be there. So the back-end architecture for Airplane CI, we could deploy it on any container scheduler, I guess, if we wanted to at some point. Right?
Yeah.
Does it work on Kubernetes then?
Probably could work on Kubernetes.
Probably could be made to do that, yeah. So there's still a lot of flexibility in that.
So how did these announcements here from Cloud Foundry affect your thinking about the container runtime and the application runtime?
Probably just presents more options, I think.
Yeah.
Another thing is that all of these it's very, in contrast to what we were saying about earlier with that reproducibility problem with Jenkins, it's so reproducible that it's often simpler just to blow the whole infrastructure away. Because you can recreate your Concourse on demand from a manifest. And there's nothing stored in that you need to reproduce to be able to do the pipeline. You can store your pipeline with your app, and you can just redeploy your Concourse straight away. So if there's any problems with it, you can just recreate it. It's really very refreshing.
Yeah.
So how's this show been for you?
It's been great, yeah. So we've got a booth here. We're talking to customers about all the different things we do. So we've been launching Airplane CI and giving out the T-shirts and getting people excited about that. But we're also talking about the consultancy services we do.
So let's see this T-shirt here. Is this looks like Jenkins?
Provocative.
This is like Jenkins getting buzzed by the airplane, huh?
Yeah. He's a little bit flustered by it.
Yeah. Yeah. You guys are rough, man. And that old poor Jenkins guy.
So we didn't think there was too much problem with poking fun at him. But we hope that it's going to be useful for people. We really want good feedback. There's a contact details on Airplane CI front page. So once you've signed up, tell us a bit more about what you're really interested in learning about, or what you're interested in doing with it, and then it'll really help us develop the product. So.
Well, Peter, Daniel, thank you very much for taking some time to talk with us here at the Cloud Foundry Summit. Good luck. When are you going to be doing the actual launch? Do you have any idea?
Well, I mean, it's available now.
It's available now.
We're just going to be iterating on that.
You're going to be opening it up and just to gradually to more people as it goes? Okay.
Yeah.
Great. All right, so airplane.ci.
Yeah.
All right, great. All right, thanks so much, you guys.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Listen to more episodes of the New Stack Makers at thenewstack.io/podcast. Please rate and review us on iTunes, like us on YouTube, and follow us on SoundCloud. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.